Don Juan and the Art of Sexual Energy, the Rainbow Serpent of the Toltecs. Preface. How to approach the practices presented in this book. In Europe, where this book was first released, people have responded to its simplicity and have asked me if it is deliberate. I tell them yes. My mentors and I feel that simplicity is required because we are but children when sexual energy begins to complicate our lives. In fact, from the moment of our conception, sexual energy plays a vital role as one of the major forces that will shape our lives. Gentleness, simplicity, and humor are the required medicine. Sharing just enough at first, and not too much, so as not to frighten, overload, or confound, and so as to allow the natural cleansing and liberating process to begin. A friend of mine called Alfonsina said that she thought this book should be written to resemble lessons for big children. She said there is an inherent kindness in even the most terrifying children's stories that is very beneficial to the body. I couldn't agree with her more. And so, following that advice, I have endeavored to share the kindness and humor in all of this sexual energy work, in addition to some specific practices. As to the practices themselves, take them slowly. Don't be in a rush to fabricate an experience. Take one practice at a time. Work with it consistently and gently until it begins to produce beneficial effects in the body. Don't be greedy to get it all and race through to arrive at the last practice. There is so much more. What I offer here is simply a beginning that will put your feet on the right road. Some of the practices are more advanced than others. Some are quite advanced indeed. These will always reference an earlier practice, which one needs to experience successfully before moving on to the next level. All of the work, even that which seems the most simple, will produce profound results. So again, there's no need to rush. This is not a competition. With that in mind, my last bit of advice is to enjoy. Joy is a quality that we all have but lost, and it is very good medicine to rediscover it. The practices do flow in a natural order, so simply trust the process. There is no need to skip around. Try to maintain a relaxed, focused, and healthy, loving, enthusiastic curiosity as you embark on this spiritual journey. Introduction. In 1979, while journeying to Mexico, I met an old native gentleman in the desert of Arizona who was forever to change my life. He was a solitary figure, a Yuma, or Quetzan, as they like to be called, and was notorious for a very potent and mysterious shamanic ability called dream power. This Nahual, shapeshifter shaman, was commonly known by the Spanish pen name of Don Juan Matus. Over the years that I knew him, he endeavored to teach me his special form of dreaming and share its potency with me. I discovered under his tutelage and benevolence that dream power is an indispensable tool in healing that literally makes miracles happen. I also came to realize that dream power has strong links to our sexual energy and to the development of our energy bodies, which, although it shouldn't have, came as quite a surprise to me. As we continued our association, my own dream power grew, and I began to acquire full-fledged entry into Don Juan's world. It was at this time that he revealed to me that he had seen we were the same sort, energetic counterparts. As I matured as a woman, my feelings toward him changed from awe to something more like love. If I truly examine my perceptions and feelings, though, I realized that I loved him on first sight, despite the differences in our ages and cultures. In 1994, my mentor and energetic counterpart leaped from this world by literally walking out of his body, experiencing the fire within and rainbow crossing of the spirit waters at death. These are the classic teachings of the Rainbow Serpent, a body of transformational sexual energy wisdom found within the culture of the Toltec Maya. Having been joined with Don Juan in a sacred union of energies before, after, and at the time he left this world, I found myself the inheritor of his magical realms and of his desert homeland. One among several still living members of this legacy is a powerful sorceress by the name of Doña Celestina de la Soledad. Another is the artful dreamer and healer Juan, once pen-named Don Genaro by Carlos Castaneda. At first glance, Doña Celestina appeared to be a full-blooded witch. There is no doubt about it, and no other way to put it. The Doña, now 84 years of age, was 66 at the time of our first meeting in 1981. She stands a powerful 5'7", my exact height. Has a native face with gray hair, which she pulls up into a head rag turban, and fully lives up to her given name, Soledad, solitude. She always wears a simple black dress to cover her dark, lean, muscular body, and scarcely ever smiles, but has long, beautiful teeth. It was Doña Celestina, terror upon terror, who took charge of my instruction in the ways of female power. I'll never forget the day that Don Juan took me across the Mexican border into San Luis Rio, Colorado, to meet her. Doña Celestina was standing on the street corner in her black dress and sandals, whacking the stalks from large ears of corn with a massive machete, partially husking the ears with forceful strokes and tossing them into a metal washtub of boiling water, which sat upon coals smoldering on an old oil drum. She leered at me while she worked, and her dark shadow leapt in my direction, stretching over the sunlit curb at a diagonal. It hovered where I stood. This is no healer, no medicine woman, I thought to myself, chilled. She is a bona fide witch, through and through. Don Juan stared at me fiercely, reading my thoughts. "This is your teacher," he said, and made the appropriate introductions. Doña Celestina is a composite of Corn Mother and Dragon Lady. I found her to be as fierce and as capable as they come. Among her areas of energetic expertise are longevity wisdom, sexual energy practices, and powerful antidote witchcraft. During my continued stays in her home in San Luis Rio, Colorado, Sonora, I worked daily to earn my keep, and still do when I visit. She tolerates nothing less. In the beginning of the relationship, I scrubbed the tile walls, counters, and floors with a boar bristle brush until they glistened, and washed clothing spotless by hand. Later, I graduated to ironing the clothing over and over until the creases were as sharp and straight as blades, and then mopped the tiles until you could eat off the floors. Finally, having mastered the aforementioned tasks, I joined a small rank of girls she taught to machine sew straight seams at a lightning pace. Together we would finish piles of clothes for later sale in the market, all following her expert example and under her witchly scrutiny. It never once occurred to any of us to think to herself, this is an apprenticeship. It was a matter of survival. At night, when the shadows crept and the younger girls went home or to bed, Doña Celestina and I always went into her dark workroom to learn trabajitos, little jobs. This was her altar room for seance, counseling, and her anti-hex. Anti-hex. It was forbidden to enter unless she was accompanying, and no one would have ever dared break that rule. At the first hint of twilight, we dined in the old tiled kitchen on simple but powerful fare: corn, squash, beans, chilies, and tortillas usually, followed by strong coffee. We'd leave the dishes to soak and enjoy the change in light and breeze from bentwood rockers on her inner patio. And then at dark, like two drifting shadows, we'd enter the smoky altar room and sit across from one another at a rustic work table. The large room was then, and is still now, always lit only by candlelight, and every conceivable energy can be found within it. We often discussed and worked well into the night. Many of the things I have learned from Doña Celestina are terrifying, but she teaches by nature what she has to do to survive. Much like the deposed Mother Earth in a time of earth changes. At the core of her teachings lies a body of spiritualized sexual energy practices and longevity wisdom. These are the areas I shall focus upon in this account. With this centerpiece, I also share more of the sexual energy and dreaming practices taught to me by my other two mentors, Don Juan Matus and Chan Yakil. For them, there is a profound connection between sexual energy and dreaming, especially shamanic dreaming. Some initiations into the shamanic realms of Don Juan Matus and Chan Yakil have been explored at length in my first book, Medicine Dream, A Nahual Woman's Energetic Healing, which recounts how I, an educator, was thrust into the world of shamanic healing rituals and dream double development. The introduction of Doña Celestina and her perspectives is completely new within the domain of this current book. The present focus of my work in this area with Chan Yakil, an 86-year-old practitioner of the Toltec Mayan branch of Nahualism, has now evolved. At Chan's request, I have been acting as his ambassador to the medical community, appearing with psychiatrists and physicians on numerous panels about shamanism, alternative medicine, and traditional Western medicine. In detailing the actual dreaming practices prescribed for healing, based on seeing energy directly, I am able to demonstrate that illness and other maladies have spiritual and energetic precursors that complement their physical manifestations. All of this knowledge, combined with what I have learned from Don Juan, of the true and authentic fire within energetic crossing practice undertaken at the moment of death, comprises newly discovered aspects of ancient Nahualist shamanism and contains valuable missing pieces of the world's shamanic, spiritual, and metaphysical puzzle. I have found that in addition to the Toltec, the Nahua, and the Maya, many other indigenous cultures have had the Nahual, the shapeshifter sun, or fire being, Uaikin in the Mayan language, and may have once had knowledge of the fire from within. The Cuero descendants of the Inca are one such example. The Yaqui, Yuma, and Dine, as well as early Mississippian cultures, are yet others. Nahualism has been found to have its roots in the same knowledge pool that fed the pre-Tibetan and Siberian shamanic traditions, and these began long before, and occurred during the transcontinental shamanic sweep, perhaps 40,000 years ago. Knowledge of the rainbow serpent fire is found in pieces within the tradition of Kundalini Yoga, in the Tibetan development of the rainbow body, within Taoism as the immortal body, and among the Sioux and other native peoples as the spirits of the rainbow world. The Australian Aboriginals refer openly to the rainbow serpent as the primordial life energy and have many ancient rock paintings representing the energy. In this new book I am sharing what I have witnessed and experienced of these ancient ways, the lessons taught to me, and how I have seen people benefit from dramatic healing, energy, and expanded, enlightening awareness. Many of the teachings are newly revealed and seem to have been withheld until the appropriate moment. Now the feeling is that it is time. Humankind, the earth, and all of her creatures are currently facing an impending evolutionary shift and an opportunity for realignment within our best possible intent. Much of what is missing in the current worldview is to be found within ancient wisdom traditions. Simply put, The paradigm shifts in perception and energy that are now being shared have the capacity to heal and to be practical tools that we can use to survive, to evolve, and to aspire toward enlightenment. Blessed be. Chapter 1. Dream Bridging. In 1993, I moved back to Yuma, Arizona. It was to be the last year I would spend with all three of my mentors in their physical bodies. The drive had been a long one. 4 days across the southern United States in my white Jeep Cherokee, marking the distances. I was tired of sitting with my foot to the gas pedal. But when I saw the Picacho Peak, one of the first distinguishable features of the human horizon, I felt a surge of energy and exhilaration. I arrived in an old town and went straight to Lute's Casino, which is not really a casino at all, but rather a turn-of-the-century pool hall, saloon, and domino parlor that exists as if within a mythical oasis in time. There I was told by some Yuma Indians who live across the Colorado River on the reservation that Don Juan had relocated and was now living in the Cocopa Mountains south of Mexicali. After all my driving, somehow this did not surprise me much. I knew how he liked to roam the desert, but it meant more time in the Jeep, for which I now felt mysteriously prepared. I got directions to the mountains and the town, and then went to settle my things into a small adobe apartment Don Juan had found for me in Old Town, near the reservation. The apartment was the kind of place that looks so simple, warm, and empty, you don't want to put anything into it. It was private and flooded by light on the smooth walls and floors, with desert vegetation surrounding it and an irrigation canal behind it. By the time I unloaded and showered, it was late afternoon. I sat back in the driver's seat and headed southwest toward Baja, California. The drive, as it often is in the human desert, was beautiful. First riding under the sunny, cloudless sky past the algodones sand dunes, used in many Hollywood films to simulate the Sahara Desert, then turning south onto the craggy Baja Peninsula and heading for the blackened lava peaks, now burnished golden by the setting sun. I arrived in the little Cocopa town of Pozo on the Mexican Baja Peninsula, shortly after the sun descended behind those peaks. There was nothing much to it, just a couple of dirt roads with small cement or wattle and daub houses, and the backdrops of the mountains. I found a friend of Don Juan's, Luis Tanfoya, sitting on a wooden chair in the shadowy front area outside of his tiny cement home. Getting out of my Jeep, I greeted him politely and asked directions. With his toothless grin shining, he offered me a cup of water and pointed up the dirt road to a small pinkish home at the end of it. After savoring the cup of cool water and chatting casually, I drove to the last house on the right side of the road. Large yucca were growing out front and to the back. There were several huge cardan cacti that attain massive height and live for several hundred years. "Don Juan," I called as I pulled a small cooler filled with several packages of smoked rainbow trout out of the passenger side of my Jeep. "Presente," he called back in Spanish from the backyard. I went eagerly around back without entering the house. He was dressed in a black shirt and slacks, sitting on a wooden chair, peeling pitayas, colorfully festive cactus fruits about the size of light bulbs, with a small hunting knife. He put down the clay bowl of shavings and stood up to greet me with a big hug. "This is for you," I said, referring to the cooler, which I dropped to the ground with the force of his squeeze. "Sit down," he invited, pulling another wooden chair out of the back room of the house. He snooped in the cooler, and then, closing it, offered me a clay bowl filled with peeled pitayas. The luscious fruits were dazzling white, green, orange, red, scarlet, and blackish purple. I felt I had never seen such vibrant fruits. I selected the dark purple one and bit into it. The rich meat was juicy and a bit fibrous, the juice almost an elixir filled with little black seeds. I slurped and wiped the purple stain from my mouth and fingers with a moist cloth that Don Juan handed me from the bare wooden table where he had set his knife, the peelings, and the rest of the unpeeled pitayas. The sky was now shades of crimson, and a small flock of grackles started cackling from a mesquite tree nearby. I admire your restraint in not asking me what I am doing even further out in the middle of nowhere, Don Juan joked. There is a saying among the Arabs that God created the desert so that he could be by himself, I responded in kind. Don Juan laughed heartily. This is an ejido. Do you know that word in Spanish? Like a rancheria or a tribal or a communal egalitarian farm? I asked, searching my mind for a proper translation. Don Juan smirked at my lengthy definition. Yes, this is the style in which most of the desert river cultures, from the Mojave to the Yaqui, used to live. To be a part of the community, one must work, so I am here as the local Quaxat. The shaman with dream power. I attempted to translate from Yuma. Right. Of course our homes were different, made of desert materials, but this is the influence of the government. He patted the pink cement wall of the little house he had been given by the Cocopa community. Precisely why I moved from Yuma for a time. Too much government interference with the Indians. In desperation, they are considering a casino right across from the reservation bridge. I hope they build it, if that's what it takes to get a fair shake from Uncle Sam. I pondered the possibility of a casino on Yuma land. Being Yuma, you can live on either side of the border then. I can visit tribal members here for an indefinite time, he grinned slyly. As a Yuma Indian, I can cross the border without papers. Don't you remember that I taught you to do the same? To cross the border without papers? Of course, yes I do. By saying that I am a U.S. resident, or whatever American border town I happen to be near, who has only been across for the day shopping. I laughed out loud. I always thought that was some of your sorcery. I still use that trick. It has given me so much pleasure to hypnotize the government's consumer mentality with the phrase, I was shopping. It works even if I have been in Mexico for months, as long as I don't have excessive baggage. A metaphor for life, Don Juan reflected humorlessly and somewhat dramatically. Not only has it given you pleasure, it has also given you a taste of freedom, a beautiful fruit waiting only to be picked. He reached across the table so that he might offer me another exquisitely peeled pitaya from the bowl. As I pondered his gesture, he added, Your timing couldn't be better. I'm overjoyed to see you, and also very glad that I won't have to hitch a ride to San Luis. I have some business there tomorrow. Just beginning to recover from 4.5 days in my Jeep, I thought of the 3-hour drive awaiting us in the morning. As a matter of fact, you have some business there as well, Don Juan hinted, and then went silent. What kind of business? I asked. It was almost dark. Don Juan rose and motioned for me to follow him inside. He lit a kerosene lamp, and I saw that the back room was a kitchen, furnished with a small gas stove, several large freestanding water jars with lids, a sink, and a wooden table and chairs. This place has cold water plumbing, thanks to the Mexican campaign for portable water in small villages. Don't drink it, though, he laughed. What business? I repeated. He continued walking into the main room, holding the kerosene lamp. There were thick straw mats on the floor, and hand-woven blankets folded against the wall. The lantern light cast eerie shadows filled with golden hues against the open front window, dawned with purple twilight and the silhouette of one large yucca. I yawned. Don Juan motioned me to sit on a mat near the window. He seated himself on a mat next to me. What business do I have in San Luis, besides accompanying you tomorrow? I insisted sleepily. I can't tell you yet. You dream your way there tonight and discover the reason for yourself. You won't have any trouble. You're already falling asleep, aren't you? I confessed that the long drive had finally caught up with me and taken its toll. It's not the drive, he laughed softly. There is magnificent energy on the move. See if you can glimpse it tonight in dreaming. And tomorrow we'll try to bridge into the dream. He didn't need to say more. I was already dozing on the mat. Don Juan passed me a blanket and I fell asleep the minute I covered my body. My dreaming opened as if riding an elevator up into my luminous energy body. A sliding door then appeared, parted, and I found myself in the sunlit patio of Doña Celestina de la Soledad's home in San Luis. I became hyper alert, not only because I was dreaming lucidly, but because Doña Celestina is a powerful Cocopa sorceress, and I did not want her to sense my presence in her home. There was beautiful iridescent beadwork on a clear glass table. Someone seemed to be beating a snake out of sheer rainbows. I sensed Chan's presence and heard his laughter in the distance. Since Chan is a Maya healer and lives in the Yucatan region of Mexico, far from where I was at the moment in Don Juan's home, it seemed odd to hear him. A golden cauldron was streaming near a lush papaya tree, and a fragrance alternately jasmine, then heliotrope, hung in the air. Beautiful sphere-like music wafted intermittently with the fragrance. Long, slender green stalks in bloom with swirling pearlescent cone-shaped blossoms pointed upwards in the flower garden near the entrance to the house. A fountain splashed a tube of water, silvery translucent liquid mother of pearl. I heard Don Juan's voice tell me to open this dream, and I sat down, humming, and rocked in a bent willow rocker. I awoke in the morning replenished and humming the same tune. The sun was barely up, and the air was fresh. Don Juan was already up, fixing eggs with machaca, a dried beef prepared in Sonora. There is no mistaking the wonderful smell of machaca and giant Sonoran tortillas, so thin they are translucent and larger than serving platters. I went down the hall off the main room and found the promised indoor plumbing. A toilet, a sink attached to the wall, and a shower spigot with no curtain, just a small tile floor with a drain in the center. By the time I was showered and changed, breakfast was almost on the table, and coffee was brewing. I hummed the mysterious tune of my night's dreaming as I dried my short hair. 2 gambol quails then called back to me from a cactus that I could see in the morning light through the small bathroom window. With hungry anticipation, I headed for the kitchen. Buenos dias, Don Juan greeted me cheerfully, setting a steaming plate on the rustic table. He was grinning, as he often did after following my dreaming with his own. I seated myself, and he poured me a mug of hot coffee. We can talk about dreaming during the entire drive to San Luis, if you wish. For now, let's eat so that we can be on our way. Someone will be expecting us, he said mysteriously. I ate the delicious breakfast of hot, salty meat, eggs, and tortillas with considerable enthusiasm. Don Juan smiled, watching me eat with apparent interest. I'm glad to see that you are enjoying food and have gained a little weight. I don't care what your women's magazines say. Skinny women are unhealthy. Up until now, you have always had a tendency to be too thin. Now you look robust, muscular, and strong." He got up from the table to clear our plates. After helping him, I repacked my Jeep, and within 30 minutes we were driving up the dirt road, out of Pozo. Once we were off the rough roads and on the highways, Don Juan began a discussion of dreaming. He relaxed in the front seat as if to prepare for a long talk. "Every power in our culture is derived from dream power," he began. "Dreaming is the deepest, natural, and healthy trance that the body induces. It is because of this depth and its visionary capacity, and also due to the fact that the energy body may journey fully, that dreaming is the most highly regarded among trance states. One may truly enter into sacred space and time, go through gateways, act, and bring back powers. The key, as you know, is lucidity, a key which most members of the white culture have lost, but which we, the native peoples of the Colorado River area, never threw away. What you were doing last night is called bridging, for lack of a better word in English. One enters into dreaming with lucidity, and then seeks to dream something that one may open, bring back, and step into in the waking time. This is how healers find their medicine plants and songs, how war leaders are imbued with power, and public leaders learn what to say to the people. In order for the dreaming to truly have power, it must be brought into the world for all to see. Throughout the Baja here and up the Colorado River towards Nevada, there are canyons and caves filled with murals which embody or bring back a shaman's visions. In seeing these, one enters into the power of the dreams. They are recorded for all who are initiated into their use. It is not required, however, to paint the dream into the magical womb space of a cave or canyon. A powerful shaman may carry his or her womb space bodily and energetically, and may open it and step into whenever it is necessary. This manifests the dreaming. What we will be seeing today is how well you are able to carry your dreaming in your womb, and whether or not you are able to fully step into it. I got the gist of his explanation quite well. As always, he was clear beyond a normal conception of clarity, and illuminated things that anthropologists have been wondering about for decades as almost a matter of course, as though he had no idea or interest in the fact that Westerners are unable to easily figure any of this out. "This means we will be paying a visit to Doña Celestina," I inferred with trepidation. "Exactly," he responded. "That is our business in San Luis today." "How could you possibly know in advance that I would dream of her patio?" I shrieked defensively. "I dreamed it and bridged the dream before you arrived," he told me in a mischievous tone. I was speechless for a long while he just sat there and smirked. We headed east towards Yuma, and then took the southerly road through Summertown towards San Luis. Finally, I asked him, "How does a woman hold dreaming in her womb?" "In the same way that she holds a conception. If she is crystal clear, the dream will come through perfectly, as though passing through transparent water. So it takes sexual energy to do dreaming." I followed him quite well. "Absolutely," he confirmed. "The more, the better." "What about men, then? They don't have wombs." "A man has to build his womb space by enticing the spirit of a sacred cave or canyon to come with him. The spirit must continually be honored in order for it to desire to remain with him. This is a problem that many white men have, that essentially imbalances them and ultimately makes them powerless. They dishonor the feminine. No shaman worth his salt would ever do such a thing. A cave or canyon spirit will respond to songs, cries, genuine outpourings of longing, and may be honored with cleansing using sweepings and sacred smokes. Is that why you often rake the sand outside your home into beautiful patterns? You see the beauty and the honor of it because there is a whole and healthy womb within you. His tone became soft and poetic. What about phallic energy? Do women have to build it for some magical purpose? Women already have this energy. Doña Celestina will tell you more about it if she agrees to let you stay with her for a while. I am going to stay with Doña Celestina? My hands began to perspire on the steering wheel. Don Juan smiled openly, showing his even teeth. Yes, that apartment I found for you is just for your rest breaks. Most likely, you'll be with Doña Celestina quite often, much more than you may have anticipated. He searched his khaki shirt pocket and then his trouser pocket for a quarter to give to a small Mexican child selling oranges at the border checkpoint. We ought to be there shortly. Turn left at the first street after we're across, and then right on the first street past El Tecolote herb shop. A guard smiled and waved us through the Mexican guard station. It felt surreal, almost as though he were saying goodbye to the reality we were leaving and bidding us into a new one. As always, when approaching Doña Celestina's territory, I felt a move into an eerie slow motion. I gripped the wheel as we proceeded into an undulating, almost deep underwater-like energy, permeating the length of the solitary, sunlit street.